Welcome everyone, and we also want to welcome all of our friends who are joining us through the streaming telecast now. It seemed very fitting. Maria had contacts with people literally all over the world, and many of them are joining us from far and distant places. Well, it is my great joy to share with you what I can feel in my heart is the essence of Nayaswami Maria, or as she will always be to me, Marushki. She was a very complex, multifaceted person. She had the mind of an engineer. In fact, she studied that. But she had the heart of a poet and an artist. She had the strength of a warrior, unconquerable, but she had the kindness and compassion of the most beautiful mother one could imagine. She was all of these things. And she will forever, forever be with us in our spirit. I'd like to start by reading a poem that was written for Maria by a dear friend she made over the internet, a woman who lives on the Isle of Man off the coast of England, Sue Cooper, or Swami Kriyananda gave her the spiritual name, Maitreyi. This is a poem that she wrote for Maria's passing, and she asked us to read it today. It's entitled, Come, My Child. Come, my child, for it is now time to take you unto spheres sublime. Your life you gave in service true, reward in kind I bequeath you. Cherished in my light of gold, to you all wonder will unfold. All heaven rejoice, my child returns from wanderings of many years. The moon, the stars and spangled sky twinkle greetings from on high. Hark, a lamb returns unscathed, with heart as pure as newborn babe. Dear child, my light, my precious love, I give to you my heart, my blood. Come sit beside my heavenly throne. The time has come to take you home. Om, Om, Amen. Well, the story of Maria's life is really all of our story. When our choir was singing earlier, home is that beautiful song by Swami Kriyananda. Home is a green hill, home is a wind, blowing betrayal far, far away. And then home is the knowledge, heaven is near. Home's the end of the fray. And really, all of Maria's life, we've known her for the past 30 years from her beginning association with Ananda. It's been about her soul seeking its home. And she, as I think most of us know, was born in Russia, but she knew instinctively that that wasn't her home. Her parents both died young, so that all the ties there, most of the ties, were cut. And she began seeking, where do I fit in this strange, inimical world where I feel like a stranger? With her keen mind, with her profound heart, I think the thing I loved the most about Maria was that she always zeroed in on the core of truth and would not compromise with anything less than that. And so she and her sister Bella made their way from Russia to Israel, from Israel to Europe, from Europe to New York, from New York to California, and finally she lived with us we had an ashram, an Ananda house in San Francisco, and she lived with us there. But she kept seeking to go, where is my home? And then finally she came to Ananda Village. And this was what she had been seeking. And I remember some years ago we were going through some political activity with the county where we were trying to get Ananda incorporated. And there was a public hearing, and there were people saying, well, the zoning and the water usage and, you know, all these things that they talk about at public hearings. And I remember, and then there was open for public comment, and people were making different comments about population density and all these things that people talk about in this world. And I remember Maria, she wasn't big, she was shorter than I was, but I remember her going up there, and it had gotten pretty heated because there was a lot of negative thought about Ananda expanding at that time. And I remember her going right up to the mic, and she said, again, always cutting straight to the truth, she said, for all of you, this is about zoning and land usage. For me, this is my home. And everyone became quiet. And I could sense a shift in that, in the whole process at that point. Because people could feel Ananda was not about alternative land usage. It was about finding a home in God where we can go deep in that experience. And that's what Maria always honed in on. And then in the last 10 years, when she first came, she was young. And she, as we are when we're young, we're not that serious about things quite yet. But I could then, within the last 10 years, she began her battle with cancer. And one saw a profound change in those years. Because as she went through repeated surgery, repeated chemotherapy, repeated radiation treatment, with each of those experiences, her soul just shone more and more. I remember once she was coming into work in the middle of a radiation therapy of many months. And I said, Maria, you don't need to come to work. And she said, no, you don't understand. I do need to come to work. This is what's giving me the strength to fight this battle. And another time I was coming in the door, we would always see her, sometimes with Devi, or she sometimes alone, walking from their house across the meadow, striding very vigorously into the office. And she had her little blue jacket on, her little blue hat, and she was waving, and she said, I'm not dead yet! I'm going to keep going till the end. And so, as her life came towards the end, and I'll let Jyotish will speak more about the final period, but the strength that she had built up in those years of, again, honing in, what's real? What's real? I don't want anything that is ephemeral. The body goes, youth goes, health goes, everything goes. I don't care about it all. I only want my home in God. And that's what she honed in on more and more. And the rest was just superficial. And Devarshis reminded me that it's exactly a mere 4 weeks ago. They were in Dallas, and she began having severe headaches. And she knew right away what was going on. And there was a Kriya initiation Saturday night, exactly 4 weeks ago. And her prayer at the Kriya initiations, you always offer a deep, heartfelt prayer to God. And her prayer was, let me be free of cancer. Not well, but free of this cancer. And then the next day she said to Devarshi, don't worry about me, I am free. And she was free of it. She was free of the hold it had on her. She was free of the fear of it. She was free of the fear of death. And from then on, the next steps she took were just to go deeper and deeper into the truth. And I must say, I feel no separation from her. To the extent that I can root myself in truth and in God, that's where Maria is right now.
When Maria found out that she had cancer, she knew right away that it would not be long. And she began to cross that bridge that all of us someday must cross, that separates us from this world and the next world, the astral world. And as she began that process, she began not with any trepidation, not with worry, not with anything except a complete, total offering into the light and into God. In those last days, last 3 weeks or so, she was very, very inward. She was a private person anyway, and she never liked a lot of stuff going on around her, or most especially focus on her. She would always divert it. And that was true of the final process that she started. But speaking of the final process, Swami Kriyananda has talked about the passing from this world as our final exam, meaning that really life is a preparation for that final moment, a preparation not of intellect, but of heart and consciousness. And according to how we prepare in this life, we will take that final exam. It's a much more difficult final exam than medical school or the bar exam. This is life exam, and it's the exam of the totality of who we are. And Maria pulled in and began very serious preparation for that final exam. Before the medical establishment had determined that she had these tumors in her brain, she knew intuitively, and she knew from inside. And her balance deteriorated quite rapidly. She had headaches and she lost her balance. And so even to go in for the medical tests, Devi had to take her in a wheelchair. And as she was going in, for the MRI to get the final diagnosis, she could feel Devishi's serious, feeling and concern about this, and a sadness. And she said to him, he said very lovingly, but very firmly, she said, detach yourself, control the reactive process, live the teachings. Detach yourself, control the reactive process, live the teachings. If there's a summation of the spiritual path, that's it. And it's one that we all need to learn how to live. The final exam is what will determine our next life, and indeed will determine if there is going to be a next life. So the way that we prepare ourselves for that, and the way that we go into the light, in yogic teachings, either we go out through the medulla, or the energy goes out through the spiritual eye or the crown chakra. And if it goes out through the spiritual eye or the crown chakra, we're free from the necessity to come back. And so that's the final exam. But what pulls it back are desires, detach yourself, or regrets or feelings about this and that, control the reactive process. And the final thing that holds us back is that we're not able to focus on Master, on God, on our spiritual path, live the teachings. And in that simple exchange, she summed up the whole of our spiritual path. The last few weeks, they were quite short, about 3 weeks. She was very, as I said, very withdrawn. Galina was there for almost all of it. Devi was there, of course, for all of it. Devi and I were there for some of it, including the last night and the day of the passing. But she had a small group of friends come and pray and meditate, or Devi did. And of course Maria knew about it and was encouraging that. And so a small group of friends would come and meditate and pray in the morning and in the afternoon and in the evening, and continue those prayers throughout as much as possible. When we learned, Devi and I came up from Los Angeles and spent a few days, but we had to go back, and so we went in to essentially let her know that we loved her and that we were saying goodbye and that we had to go back to Los Angeles. And she acknowledged too, her love for us. We were very close, Devi and I and Maria and Devarshi, very, very much like a family. When she first came, she came to San Francisco house, first came to California and to this path. She came to San Francisco house where Devi and I were helping lead the ashram. And so it was a very, very close relationship all along. So she acknowledged the love and the friendship that we shared, just very softly, just with a word or two. And then she, kind of in a very quiet voice, so ultra typical of Maria, said, "Get back to work." And that was her life. No nonsense, not a lot of emotion. Detach yourself, control the reactive process, live the teachings, get back to work. And that was the expression of her soul. The passing was the passing of a very, very great soul. It's not easy to pass with such freedom of consciousness. It's not easy to take that final exam with such complete concentration and focus on God, on Master, on the light, and going into that light. And she did that, not just did it, she did it with flying colors, and she did it as a model for all of us when that time comes. I too, like Devi, it's a little bit strange because, as I say, we were very close, but honestly, I haven't felt a moment of sadness. It's more a sense of joy, and it's not even like I feel that she's gone. I don't feel like she's gone. She's just expanded. She's still here, but she's elsewhere too at the same time. And I think that profound dedication of everything that she had, all of her heart, all of her mind, all of her strength, her whole soul being offered to God, has expanded her into the goal that we are all seeking. Swami Kriyananda said a few words after he learned of her passing, just to reassure Devarshi and the rest of us. He said, she feels like a very great soul and that she's free. He also said a few words after he learned that she was fighting this final battle. And we have a recording of that that he gave during the Sunday service. We'll play that now.
And why don't you just start enjoying yourself? Enjoy whatever comes to you. And if tragedy seems to come, it's not really tragedy. Look at the other side and you'll find out that it worked out just the way it had to. Death works out just the way it has to. There's one woman at Ananda village now who's on the point of death, and her brain is just completely frazzled. There's all sorts of things going on, tumors and so on. There's just no hope for her. And she's taking it very calmly, very peacefully, and she says it's just right. And I have seen over the years, she had cancer of the breast years ago, and she got chemotherapy and had to go through a great deal of pain from that. But now she's reached a point of maturity where nothing can touch her. It is so thrilling to see people reach that point of understanding where death itself is welcome. It doesn't matter. You know that you have accomplished what you needed to accomplish. You know that you are who you want to be. Who? All right, who? And with all of this, you'll see that underlying all of life, there is bliss. Life itself is, well, at the end of it all, when you've gone through all this long trail, seeking whom you and who you really are, then you will understand that it was well worth it. Every saint who ever found God has said it was well worth it.